very warm welcome to you. Welcome to Farming with Walt. It's Wednesday what is the date today? It's Wednesday the 8th of May. Welcome to rural New Zealand. I thought I'd give you a bit of a rundown on where we're at for the season, given that it's ending on the 31st of this month at midnight. We've dried off everything. Everything's been teat sealed, and those that required dry cow treatment, so a long-acting antibiotic, have received those. And the results are in, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. So just as a background, there are two farms here within this Maori Trust. There is Farm 1 and there is Farm 2. It is divided by a railway and a road, and they are equal platforms in relation. This is 70 hectares, the other farm 70 hectares. Effective. Both have herringbone sheds, automatic cup removers and in-shed feeding systems. Farm 2 tends to be wetter in the winter than Farm 1 here, and that's why in Farm 1 everything is calved here on Farm 1. Once we've got around about 50 cows that have done their 8 milkings, the first 8 milkings, so we've taken the colostrum, they're clear, they then go to Farm 2 and they start providing milk as supply milk. And then what we do is we start just adding more and more cows until we get to about 180 cows, or thereabouts, 170, 180, and then we start supplying milk from this shed. So we're doing colostrums and milk from this shed for the remainder of the calving period. This season, this farm produced 81,638 kilos of milk solids. Farm 2 produced 88,427 kilos of milk solids, for a total of 170,065 kilos of milk solids. The herds were split on the basis of anything that was the older girls and the lower hanging udders. They were put onto Farm 2, primarily because that shed is better suited for milking lower hanging udders. The pit's deeper and it just works a bit better on your back and that sort of thing. So we had the youngest herd over here, we had the older herd over there. You would expect to see a higher milk solid return on Farm 2 on that basis. If you look at the 170,065 kilos and divide by the 400 cows that we roughly had in milk, that's 425 kilos of milk solids a cow. That's not bad going. We put in 85 tonne of in-shed feeding per shed this season. Last year they put double that. So we did 170 tonne across the two sheds, and that had a valuation of around about $133,000. 2022-23 year, they put 340 tonne of in-shed feeding in, and yet they only produced in 2022-23 157,199 kilos of milk solids. I put that down to one thing, and that is primarily, from what I understand, that they had a lot of rank grass, well over 4,000 kg of dry matter per paddock. They had put on fertiliser in bulk, in short runs. They had more grass than they could cope with. And from that point of view, a lot of it went to rank, and it was just a disaster on that point of view. We very much focused on pasture grown, pasture grazed. We focused on having good residuals and making sure that paddocks were being chewed out at the right time, which meant that we were getting good regrowth that had a nutritional value, an ME, for the cows. And we mixed that with 2 kilo a day of in-shed feeding. The in-shed feeding really was about retaining the condition on those cows, and I think that was very successful. We used a palletized feed, and that was very successful. At certain times of the season, during certain shoulders, we weren't afraid to put in either grass silage or maize silage. And we did have a surplus of maize, so we have used that, and we had a good result, around about 26 tonne per hectare of maize we harvested from our 13.5 hectares of runoff. So that's for next season. We haven't touched that yet. Actually, we used a little wee bit of it. There was just a small stack that we made. We've just about got through that. And that's really helped just put on a bit more condition onto the cows, and got us through to the end from a milking point of view. We were probably a little bit delayed in the last round of urea that we put on, autumn fert and urea. We were probably a little bit late on that, probably about 2 weeks, but we got through. But I do put the improvement on the milk solids down to making sure that we were grazing the pasture well, and that we were using what we were growing, because it's the cheapest form of feed that you can get. So, that 12,866 kilos of extra milk solids, that's worth about $103,000 at $8 a milk solid. The trust will probably take home about 78,000, and a half of that once they've paid the contract milkers. So that's a good improvement. That's 78,500 plus, about 130,000 they haven't spent in in-shed feeding. That's a good return. When we came to this farm, the sheds were filthy. There was fuck all power anywhere, and I shouldn't swear like that. There was bugger all power anywhere. There were a lot of trees down. They'd looked at getting a arborist in to deal with that. That was all dealt with in-house. We didn't worry about that. The fencing's all been done in-house. We have put in some new fencing in a couple of paddocks. We've pulled in the fence line from the river and redone it, because at some point it's going to fall in there, so we've taken the initiative and that's been done. We've done some improvements to the raceways. All in all, the place is a hell of a lot better off than it was when we arrived. There was a hell of a lot of rubbish everywhere. That's all been tidied up. It's been burnt. It's been discarded. And the farm is set up for the 2024-25 season. I think it's going to be a very good season. I think the cows are in excellent condition. Having learnt what we have learnt, and I'm not going to be here for the 2024-25 season, but I think having learnt what we have learnt here, we know how the farm operates. We know where it gets wet, where it gets dry. We sort of, we understand how certain paddocks work, which paddocks grow quicker than other paddocks, and a few other tips and tricks. We know where all the Kelly thistles are. We've been spraying those. They've been sprayed in the spring and in the autumn, regular. There's very little of those about now. I would say if that's done again next season in spring and autumn, I think that's going to make a huge improvement. So many people don't worry about Kelly thistles, but over time they just get that thick that they start taking up pasture, and pasture is milk solids, and I think that farmers should put a lot more effort into getting rid of Kellys. They look awful. The cows aren't too keen in getting their head in there to eat the grass, and over time it just shades it out and it kills the grass. It's like dock. You've got to get onto it. Yes, it's a cost to get onto it, but if you do it regular, at some point the inputs will reduce on that, but you'll get far more output of pasture production. And at the end of the day, we are pasture farmers. You can call yourself a dairy farmer, a cattle grazier, whatever you want to call yourself, but ultimately you're a pasture grower. That's the fundamental business you're in, is growing pasture. So all in all, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're at. 170,065 milk solids, 12,866 kilo milk solid improvement on 2022-23 season. I think the industry is looking at around about an $8 payout. I'd be pretty confident to say that. And it's looking good for 2024-25. So I wish you all the best of luck. I hope that 2023-24 season has gone well for you. I know there are some farmers that have not achieved their production goals, primarily down to poor management, either of their contract milkers or their managers, or people taking their eye off the ball. And the final thing I would say is, if you are a contract milker, or a manager, or a shear milker, well, not so much a shear milker because it's your money on the line. But if you are, just remember, as a contract milker in particular, the farm owners are relying on you for their income. And so if you're not on farm when you should be on farm, if you're letting mastitis get carried away, every time you do that, there's $70 treatment, not to mention the loss of milk production for, at least 8 days, 16 milkings, not in the vat. It adds up over time. Lameness adds up over time. These are the things that you really need to focus on, because yes, it's your livelihood, particularly if you're a contract milker, on the line. The more milk solids you get, the more money in the bank you get. And that's your bonus. If you can lift production, you're going to get a better return. And if you're able to lift production, you can then go to the farm owners next season when you renegotiate. They may not want to pay you too much more. You may be able to get to talk them into putting an extra supplement, a bit more palm kernel, maybe buying in a bit of maize. Doing some of those things that will help you achieve record productions. It'll also help them get better income. But they need to see that you are committed to their farm, you are committed to the herd, and that you can deliver on what you say you can deliver. So I wish you the best of luck for the 2024-25 dairy season. It's going to be a good one. Stick to your knitting. Control your pasture. And just remember the fundamentals of that. Pasture grown, pasture eaten. Certainly put in your supplements if you've got them on the shoulders as you need them. Don't be scared to put them in, but also don't be too quick to pull the trigger on it. And make sure that you're doing what's in the interest of the cow. That's the most important thing. And then you'll be fine. And if you do a lot of little things right, it all comes together. You'll have a good in-calf rate. It's very important. You do it right, you should be able to improve your calving spread. Tighten it up a bit, because then you get more days in milk. Control your pasture, particularly in the winter if you're in a wetter farm. Don't let them bog the paddocks, because even if you're going to put it into chicory for the summer or a summer crop in there, until that point, that's still grass that you've bucketed. That could have been useful. That could have made a contribution in September and October. So just bear that in mind. It's doing a lot of little things right. And it's finally about, if you've got staff, making them feel amazing. It's about making sure that they have all the tools that they require. It's about making sure they've got the supports that they need. If they want to ask you a question, let them ask. You might think it's a stupid question. But at the end of the day, it's better that they ask the question and you give them an answer with respect and dignity, so that they can go on and make sure that they are doing what they feel is expected of them. And at the end of the day, you're delivering for whether it's the farm owner or your share milker or whoever. That's what it's about. It's about delivering milk solids in the vat. Have a beautiful week. We'll catch you next time.